Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jaya Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
It's a long drive from the temple to your home. It's probably the same distance from your home to the temple. Not right around the corner. Everybody settled in?
Yes.
Okay. There'll probably be some people coming a little later.
Please come inside. Whoever is coming later, they're not able to hear. So please come in as much inside possible.
Inside possible means what? Inside possible means what? Do you see somebody not in the right place and just tell them where they can sit instead of where they're sitting? Kids? Come, keep a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Tell you what, somebody will come and sit in front of you, and then they'll block the project. It's okay. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Teachings of Prahlada Maharaj, Part 3. And what I would like to do, because it's the appearance day of Ramanujacharya, to speak a little bit more about Ramanujacharya's life, but not too much because we have another topic. So I thought to speak something about his education, his school days, because that's pretty interesting. His student life. There's some students here, right? A few students. Some of us are eternal students. Ramanujacharya was born in a Brahmana family, and his mother had a sister, and they were very close with one another. And so he had, when he was born, there was another son that was born, and his name was Govinda. So they grew up as cousins, and there's an important part of their friendship in all of this as we go along. Where he lived was in a smaller place, forget the name of the place, and by circumstance, he got the opportunity to meet one of the celebrated disciples of Jamunacharya, and his name is Kanchi Purna from Kanchi Puram. You're familiar with the story of his life, right? Yeah, I'm sure. So Kanchi Purna was not a born Brahmin. He was born in a Shudra family, but he was so elevated spiritually that he was respected by everybody, even the most elevated Brahmanas. They honored him because of his spiritual position, spiritual wealth, the spiritual realization. spiritual character. So he lived in Kanchi, or Kanchipuram, and he would regularly, daily, go to visit a temple some distance away by foot. And as he was traveling to get to that temple by foot, he passed through the smaller place where Ramanujacharya lived. And by circumstance, one day they met when Ramanujacharya was finishing school, and immediately in the presence of a spiritually elevated personality, Ramanujacharya felt his exalted presence and approached him, and then they spoke a little. He invited Kanchipurna, to take a meal at his home. And he's a Brahmin family inviting, this is, in some parts of India, one's birth is more important than one's spiritual quality. And sometimes that does happen. But he, without reservation, invited him to his home, and his mother prepared a nice meal for him. And after their meal, Ramanujacharya wanted to massage his feet, which was a kind of a culture for a young boy and an elevated personality. And the Sudra, by birth, Kanchipurna, was not so comfortable. You're a Brahmana by birth, and I'm the Shudra by birth, and you shouldn't be doing this. And then Ramanujacharya spoke something very nice. If my being born in a Brahmin family and my wearing a 2 paisa Brahmin cotton thread in my shoulder means I can't serve a great Vaishnava like you, then better to give it up. And in this way, seeing his convictions, what to speak of his erudition, they continued to speak, and they went on for quite some time. They went on into the night. And it became then a regular thing that they would meet together, and Ramanujacharya got his association. So Ramanujacharya, had devotional inclination from childhood, and he had Jivanacharya's disciple as association from his early days. His father, as was the custom at the time, his father was a little concerned to have his son married. So he was married at the age of 16. And as fate would have it, 2 years later, his father died. And it was very difficult for the family. So his mother and his wife and he decided it was difficult for them to stay in the same place where his father or her husband lived. So they moved to Kanchi. When they moved to Kanchi, he made an arrangement for his mother and his wife to stay there also. And in Kanchi, or Kanchipuram, was a very celebrated scholar. His name was Yadava Prakash. And Yadava Prakash gave some rigorous training to the young student before this. So he's now 18 and married. And his scholarship from when he was very young, it's said that he just would hear something once, understand it perfectly, remembered he didn't need books, he just had that kind of memory. Very, very, very bright, brilliant young student. Can you remember everything that you heard just hearing it once? Not me. How you do in that department? You remember things well? Not so well. Okay. Your head's not going to get in the way, is it? You may need to sit back a little bit. There you go. You're taking notes, too. Wow. Prabhupada said it in Kali Yuga, if you want to remember something, write it down. Because we don't have good memories for the most part. But Ramanujacharya had perfect memory. So he learned his basics and very nicely. And some of the historians of his life say it was arranged like this because of his father's background, who wasn't so keen in Vaishnavism. Others say it was Ramanujacharya's arrangement so he could thoroughly learn Shankaracharya's teachings and know exactly how to refute them. So in any case, he was an impersonalist, and they had some conflicts with one another because the way that he would teach was not in keeping with Vaishnava understandings. His teachings were in keeping with Shankara's teachings. So there was a situation where Ramanujacharya was massaging his spiritual master, his legs or feet or something like that, and the spiritual master was speaking something from the Vedas. And the particular section, this celebrated section, he was speaking something from the Chandogya Upanishad, where it has the phrase kapyasam pudrikam evam akshani. And so Yadava Prakash, was giving the rendering that Shankaracharya gave to this particular passage from the Upanishads. And the rendering that he gave was this kapyasam. Kapyasam is a reddish color like the reddish color of a monkey's rear end. So the Supreme Lord has lotus eyes as red as a monkey's rear end. And Ramanujacharya didn't say anything, but he was crying. And his tears fell on the spiritual master's body. He said, "What's happening?" He said, "This is too painful to hear this rendering." He said, "This is the way Shankaracharya taught. You have a different idea? You want to say what your different idea is? Oh, upstart student." And here's what's written about how he rendered it different. So in Sanskrit, words can mean multiple things, and the direct meaning is to be taken, and indirect meaning can be taken if the direct meaning is not appropriate. So indirect meaning, poetic language allows that. So kapi, this kapi asam can be taken as kapi jalam pibati, which means that which drinks up water, or in other words, the sun drinks up water. The word asam, so kapi and asam also can mean to blossom. So the word kapi asam can be understood as that which blossoms under the sun, or in other words, the lotus flower. Thus we can understand the mantra of the Upanishad to mean that the Supreme Lord has eyes as beautiful as a lotus flower. No, certainly that's, in terms of Sanskrit rules, is correct, and in terms of poetic language, it's much nicer than the other one. I won't even say the other one again. So, Yadava Prakash is being corrected, not instructed, but corrected by his disciple, his student. And he took exception to this because he's like super scholar, and super scholars don't like to be corrected, certainly not by their students. And it was also disturbing to him that this rendering of Ramanujacharya leaned in the direction of a Vishnu Bhakti disposition as opposed to Shankara's impersonal disposition. So there was another realm of conflict. We have some special seats for you. Okay. So there was another incident that took place sometime later. This was in the presence of another student. In the presence of another student, he was giving the meaning to a Taittiriya Upanishad statement. I don't have the Sanskrit. That the Supreme Brahman is truth, knowledge, and infinity. So those are impersonal, impersonal, impersonal. Truth, knowledge, and infinity. The Supreme Brahman is truth, knowledge, and infinity. No person. And without even having been invited to say something other, Ramanujacharya gave a different rendering. On hearing this impersonal idea of God, Ramanuja immediately objected to his teacher's explanation, saying, no, this verse means that the Supreme possesses truth, knowledge, and infinity, but still he has his own existence beyond these attributes. Which, does that sound familiar? In the morning class we discussed that the teaching of Ramanujacharya is identified, not by him, but by scholars, as Vishishta Advaita. Remember that from the morning? Vishishta means attributes, and Advaita means the supreme, or the non-dual absolute. The non-dual absolute has attributes. The non-dual absolute has attributes, or Vishishtas. So there are Vishishtas of the Absolute. That's what his statement was. He's in the neophyte stage, young stage, budding stage, describing Vishishta Dvaita. So Yadava Prakash didn't take it well. And he saw, as this young boy, he said to him, if you don't like my teachings, you can go somewhere else and start your own school. But he thought, if he starts his own school, he's so attractive and so learned and so this and so that, I'll have competition. And he then started to go further with his thinking and called together some of the other students, the ones that were very loyal to him, and invited them into a discussion about what to do about this young upstart. And they considered this, they considered that. It's not a good idea that he goes starts another school, then we have competition and this and that. So they collectively came up with this very bright idea that they should murder him. And then they made a murder plan. The murder plan was, this is, Kanchi, South India. They would make a pilgrimage to the Ganges. And somewhere along the way, in the midst of nowhere, they would bump him off. And then nobody would know because, he drowned in the Ganges or something. So, the details they would work out later. But so there was a conspiracy, a murder plot to take his life. So the mother of Ramanuja and the sister of Ramanuja's mother, they were both kind of reluctant, more than reluctant, for their sons, nearly the same age, to go on this long pilgrimage. It could take 6 months. Commonly, that's what would happen. But they became pacified somehow. This is a very auspicious venture, and Yadava Prakash is a very qualified teacher, and so forth and so on. And so they gave their permission. And as fate would have it, in the course of getting closer to the Ganges, the students and Yadava Prakash were having a private conversation, which Govinda happened to overhear. And they were making some detailed plans of making the murder happen. And so Govinda, without others knowing that he was overhearing their conversation, informed his cousin, Ramanuja, what the plan was. And so they both just went away real fast. And as they disappeared, the search party went in all directions to find them. They finally concluded they were perhaps eaten by some forest animal or something, and, the business took care of itself. We didn't have to do the murder. He's dead anyways. And so there's Govinda and Ramanuja. Now I forget exactly. Somehow Govinda made his way back to where everybody was. So Ramanuja went alone, something like that. My memory is not so good. I didn't write it down. But something like that. And so he is traveling, and he's a young man, and there's no GPS system. So how's he going to get back to Kanchi? And as he's traveling, he sees a forest-dwelling couple. The way that it's identified in the translation that I have, or the version they have, is called a fowler. Fowler was some kind of language that means their occupation was they would hunt and kill birds. You've heard that one before? Fowler. So I came up with some nice images. Here's the Fowler couple. And they said, which way to Kanchi? Have you heard of the place? They said, oh, of course you've heard of the place. It's a very celebrated place. In fact, we were thinking of going there ourselves because of our occupation. We kill birds, and we need to purify ourselves for all the sins of killing birds. And we were planning to go there, so let's travel together. So, it normally takes quite some time to get from North India, where they were, to Kanchi, but in a short period of time, they somehow reached a place where there was a well, and the couple asked Ramanuja, the young boy, to get some water go down some steps, some kind of a well place. And as he was going, when he came back up, they were gone. Just poof, they were gone. And so then he walked around and asked, which way to Kanchi? They said, what are you asking that for? You live here. This is Kanchi. And we may not have been in this particular location, so he then put 2 and 2 together and came up with 4. He said that was Lakshmi and Narayan in disguise of this couple to help me make my way safely back, because it was a short period of time, not enough time that it takes to go from where they were all the way back to Kanchipuram. So just a mystical experience. And then he reached his home. His mother was like in disbelief. You came back so soon. And, please speak so I know it's you. It's not a vision. And so he spoke, and she could understand it was really him. She was that shocked. And in confidence, he told her everything of what happened. The murder plot and the whole thing. And Govinda went back to the group to make sure everything was okay. And so then the mother of Govinda came to know the details. He asked them, sworn secrecy, don't say this to anybody. And apparently they kept that secrecy. That's a pretty hard thing to do. An attempted murder for your son. And some time passed, and Yadava Prakash returned. And he was very surprised. You can imagine. His celebrated opposition student was right there in Kanchi. And so he made as if, how nice to see you. And so I'm glad you're safe. We thought you were finished. Some animals had eaten you or something like that. And so then they inquired about Govinda. And they found out that Govinda, in the course of their travels, he was taking his sacred bath in somewhere. And he found a deity of Lord Shiva, a Shiva Linga, and he began to worship the Shiva Linga, became attached to Shiva worship, came across some ardent worshippers of Lord Shiva and joined them and became a Shiva devotee. So he didn't return with them, according to Yadava Prakash. Who knows what really happened, but that's what he said. And so that's the last we hear of Govinda. Now, Ramanujacharya is back in Kanchi, and Yadava Prakash has his favored student that he has to have some dealings with. And then we find a nice section, while he's still a student, that Yamunacharya pays a visit to Kanchi. He paid a visit to Kanchi because there's a very special temple in Kanchi that we're not going to go into because I'm just going to do this student life portion of his life. But here's the passage from the book that I was reading. Yamunacharya came to Kanchipuram to see Lord Varadaraj. While he was returning from the temple, Yamunacharya saw Yadava Prakash walking with his disciples, his hand resting on Ramanuja's shoulder. Seeing this handsome, effulgent young man, the Vaishnava saint became curious and inquired from his followers as to his identity. When he learned that this was the same Ramanuja had written the wonderful commentary on the Upanishadic mantra, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, something that Shankaracharya liked and gave an impersonal rendering, and Ramanujacharya gave a personal rendering of Vaishnava understanding, apparently very eloquent. So Yamunacharya was pleased. He saw, he understood who he was, but they didn't speak. At the same time, he was disturbed to see him under the guidance of such an ardent Mayavadi. He then prayed to Varadaraj for Ramanuja's deliverance. Look at this. From such unfortunate association, and sure enough it happened. Here's the rendering that I have. O lotus-eyed one, husband of Lakshmi, please bestow your full mercy upon Ramanuja so that he will be able to worship you fully without any hindrance. At this time, he was over 100 years old. Yamunacharya lived quite elderly. I traveled all the way from Srirangam to visit this celebrated temple. He realized that if Kṛṣṇa desired it, he would one day have the chance to meet with Ramanuja alone. Thinking like this, he returned to Srirangam. So the prayer and well wishes of Yamunacharya is all that you need. And then he got it. So there's the final little section I'm going to describe about his life is the king of Kanchi had a daughter, princess, and somehow or another, doesn't say how it happened, but the princess became inhabited by a very wicked ghost. And the girl, the princess, was unable to function. She was delirious, she was unconscious, although she was very beautiful. This isn't necessarily her, it's just something from the internet. But you give the idea, there's a princess. And so Yadava Prakash, along with being a scholar, he was also known as being good at ghost busting, exorcism. So he was invited, when the king heard this, he invited Yadava Prakash, and Yadava Prakash did his thing, and did his thing, and did his thing, and the ghost spoke in everybody's presence and just laughed at him and said, all your mantras and all your little efforts, they're nothing. They're not sufficiently powerful to do anything to remove me. But if you want, you can bring your celebrated student Ramanuja, and he's so powerful, I'll have to leave. So Yadava Prakash, that's just what he wanted to hear, right? But he's with the king, and you got to do what the king wants. So he bought Ramanujacharya, and Ramanujacharya placed his 2 lotus feet on the head of the haunted princess and said to the ghost, please leave, and when you leave, break the branch of the topmost branch of the banyan tree here and give us some sign that you've departed. And that's what happened. And, correct? You remember this story? Same, because some different versions of his life are a little different. Same. I've read different versions of many people's lives, and the versions are quite different. So that's the version that I'm familiar with. And the ghost laughed loudly and made a sound. Thank you for relieving me from this condition, and I won't return again. Ramanuja is so powerful, etc., etc., etc. He was able to free the princess from this circumstance. So the king was really grateful, not so much to Yadava Prakash, but particularly to Ramanuja. And so that was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back. Their relationship as teacher and student was over. And that's the end of the section from the book that I've been reading in honor of his appearance day. Student life ends with this incident. The relationship terminated. And he moved on and did other things with his life. So I just wanted to say something because he's such an important personality in our Vaishnava history that we really should say something in honor of him on his appearance day. And so that's why I did like that. So now we're going to go to Prahlada Maharaj again. And as I said in the morning session, we're going to do a little review of some of the main teachings that we've heard so far. I don't think I'm going to do this throughout, but here's teaching number 1. You saw this one. Now this is the 3rd time. Let's say it together. Tatsaru manye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asatkrahat yadvatma patam griham andakopam vanam goto yadarim ashaye. So this is to his father, of all people. When his father was asking, what's the best thing that you've learned in school? What an answer, huh? So it's color-coded for purpose. The samudvigna, sada samudvigna diyam means one's intelligence is always filled with anxiety. Sada samudvigna diyam. Those who are in this bodily conception, dehinam, and asat grahat. Now there's a long word-for-word explanation, but it's simply put, those in the eye and mind, those in bodily conception, dehinam, in the bodily conception, and they're very absorbed in all the temporary things. Asat grahat. Their griha is asat. Not just their family, but everything that they're taking shelter in is asat. And therefore, hitvatma patam. Atma patam is the place where spiritual culture is stopped. So hitvatma patam, we should give that place up. If you'd like to come right in the front, just flap your wings and fly over here. There's some nice, because some of the people in the back didn't want to move forward, so we're going to have to interrupt. So you can move forward. You tried. There we go. No, not right in front of the Prabhu. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Atma patam hitva Give it up, because it's like an andakupam, like a blind well. And instead you should do what? Go to the vana. Vanam gato yad dharim ashriyeta, and take shelter, Hari, of Lord Hari, dharim ashriyeta. Here's, well, we didn't do the translation, but you have the idea. The second teaching had to do with friends and enemy. It was twice spoken about by Prahlada to his teachers. Remember? You remember? Good. How about you, your friend next to you? Do you remember too? Oh, good. Good. Okay. I'm trying to remember. Here's the memory. This is when Prahlada was speaking to his teachers about Vaishnavism, worshiping Vishnu. They were upset. Where'd you learn this? You've learned this from the enemy. Which enemy are you associating with? And to the teachers, he said, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pandita and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we're not different from one another. So don't think like this, friends, enemy. And when the personality of Godhead smiles upon you because of the devotional service that you've tried to render, then he takes away that misconception, the material conception of I and mine, or friends and enemy. Instead, you think everyone's servant of Kṛṣṇa. Now, this is the very advanced stage. Some of you know there is such a thing as a very advanced stage. It's called Uttama. And most of us aren't Uttama, but Prahlada is. And most of us, at least, are striving to become Madhyama, the medium. And then there's the super beginning, Kṛṣṇa Madhyama Uttama. And this is describing the Uttama stage. The Uttama stage is Prahlada, where he sees, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, he sees everyone as Krishna's devotee. Now, some are not serving so nicely, but by spiritual constitution, we're servants of Kṛṣṇa. Behaviors may be not so good, but behaviors is not the person. It's an important distinction. It's an important distinction. You know, the Christian way of saying is hate the sin, not the sinner. So the soul should not be hate. Person shouldn't be disliked. Behaviors can be, in the modes of nature for sure, but the souls are not influenced by the modes of nature. Hey, we have a special place right up front for you. We knew you were coming, so we saved a spot right here. Right here. And we're going to allow everyone to just smile while you walk in. This is a spot. Look it. We saved it for you. It's got your name on it. It's okay. It's okay. We're friends. Okay. There he goes. Okay. He wants Daddy's lap, not yours. Okay. So this is the friends and enemy lesson. This is lesson number 2. And here's the verse following that one. Let's say the Sanskrit together. The Esha Atma Swaparetya Bodhir Daratyayano Kramano No Pripati Boyanti Yat Vartmani Vedavadino Brahmadayo Yesha Benita Me Mati. Prabhupada would say this phrase over and over again, Veda Vada, so-called knowers of the Vedas. So in blue at the bottom, Moyanti, bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Vada means a follower of the Vedas. but those who are bewildered, they don't really know what following the Vedas is. So in the pink letters, Atma, Abud here, they're unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves because they think in terms of friend and enemy. Ya Esha Atma Swa Pare, friend and enemy. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Then he's speaking about himself. That same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. Now, take the side of, that's an interesting way of translating it. But Esha Binnati Me Mati, he doesn't see Binna, he doesn't see separatism. So, but you're seeing me as the one who's taken the side of your enemy. But I'm just, situated in this position of receiving mercy, where I don't see friend's enemy. That's the distinction. That's the distinction. O Brahmanas, teachers, as iron is attracted by a magnetic stone, moves automatically towards the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand, thus I have no independence. So this is review. We saw this, now this is for the third time. They intimidate Prahlada and he doesn't yield. Now Hiranyakasipu's, the next teaching is going to be given to Hiranyakasipu. Now we know the verse. This is the 9 processes of bhakti. So let's say it together. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu, smaranam pada sevanam, archanam vandanam dasyam, sakyam atma nivedanam, iti pungsarpita Vishnu, bhakti chain navalakshana, kriyeta bhagavat yadha, tanmanye ditam uttamam. So we spent some time in the morning session, the pungsa arpita and the adha words, Prabhupada broke those down. We see that personalities that represent these 9 processes of bhakti. We're not going to go through that again. So now Hiranyakasipu was extremely angry hearing all this, and he spoke. He didn't spoke, he shouted as follows to Shanda. Oh, unqualified, most heinous sons of a Brahmana. That's an insult in itself. They're not Brahmanas, you're sons of a Brahmana, but you're not really Brahmanas. You have disobeyed my order and taken shelter of the party of my enemies. You have taught this poor boy about devotional service. Oh, horrible. And then Sanda says back, whatever your son Prahlad has said was not taught to him by me or anyone else. His spontaneous devotional service is naturally developed in him. Therefore, please give up your anger. Do not unnecessarily accuse us. It's not good to insult the Brahmana in this way. So now he's going to turn to Prahlad and heavy out Prahlad. When Hiranyakasipu received this reply from the teacher, he again addressed his son. Not just addressing his son, look what he's doing. Hiranyakasipu said, "You rascal, most fallen of our family, if you have not received this education from your teachers, where have you gotten it? And he's going to give teaching number 4. So those of you that want to know Prahlada's teachings, I'm making it like really easy. Here's teaching number 4. Let's hear it. Matirna Kṛṣṇe paratak svatova mito vipadyeta grahak pratanam adanta gobir vishatam tamishram punak punascharvita charvana. So those who've been around for a while would like to hear Prabhupada's recorded lectures. How many times have you heard this verse? Punak punascharvita charvananam matirna Kṛṣṇe. Never thinking of Kṛṣṇa, never thinking of Kṛṣṇa, never thinking. Because of their uncontrolled senses, adanta gobir vishatam tamishram, persons too addicted to materialistic life, grahak pratanam, make progress towards tamishram, towards hellish conditions, and punak punascharvita charvananam, repeatedly chew that has already been chewed. You know what Prabhupada says about this one, right? Those of you that have lived in India, you know about sugar cane. Those of you, do you know about sugar cane? Have you seen a machine that makes sugar cane juice? You've seen. Yeah. 2 months ago. Okay. Have you seen sugarcane machine? Really? When? How long ago did you go? Six months to a year ago. Okay. Okay. How about you? Have you seen the sugarcane machine? People that are not from India. The kids even have been. Okay, so it looks like just like bamboo. But it's not, it's sugar cane. And they put it in this grinding machine that has gears, and you send it through, and it squeezes out the juice, and they send it through, and send it through, and send it through, and send it through. So all the juice is gone, and they throw the whatever you call it, chaff away to the side. And somebody comes along and picks it up and chewing the chew. Chewing the chewed. There's no juice. Punak punak charvata charvananam, repeatedly chewing that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Kṛṣṇa are never aroused, matirna Kṛṣṇe, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. And Prabhupada would spend some time discussing this one. Someone may try to help you, you may try to make effort or combination, still nothing happens. Or the verse from Bhagavad Gita, where, what's the word? That's a nice one too. Mogasha moga karma no moga jnana vichetasaha. So the one is defeated or defeated or defeated. Take your choice. So their efforts are never going to be successful. Someone trying to help them is never going to be successful. The combination of the two is never going to be successful to get out of that hellish condition. So Prahlada is saying to his father, you're a hopeless case. But he's not saying that. He's just saying it a little more eloquently. Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too much addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination towards Kṛṣṇa are never aroused. Like, he wants to know, where'd you learn this? And he's saying, you won't understand. Even if I tell you, you won't understand. You're hopeless. Your inclination towards Kṛṣṇa is never going to be aroused. Matirna Kṛṣṇe. Kṛṣṇe matir astu. Look, it says the other way around, that your attention go to Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇe matir astu. It's a nice way to greet someone, or when you part, you Kṛṣṇa matirastu, or end a letter, Kṛṣṇa matirastu, that your attention be on Kṛṣṇa. Prabhupada's purport. Those who are grihavrata, those whose only aim is to live comfortably with the body in the material world, cannot understand Kṛṣṇa. The two expressions, grihavrata and charvata charvananam, indicate that a materialistic person tries to enjoy sense gratification in different bodily forms, life after life, but is still unsatisfied. And there they are. Looks like they're satisfied, huh? There's a little child, and there's all this wine, and they're laughing and clapping and singing, who knows what, frolicking, probably intoxicated. And that's enjoyment. That's family happiness. Griha andakupam. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Somebody knows the Sanskrit for this verse? So, let's one at a time. Who's going to say it first? You're going to say it. Go ahead. Does anybody else want to recite the Sanskrit of this verse? Amara, you want to recite it? Go ahead. Samada. No samadhi. Samadao no. The vidiyate. Okay. Instead, Mahatsevam Dwara Mahor Vimuktes, Prabhupada refers to this teaching of Rishabdev, that Mahatsevam Dwaram Ahor Vimuktes, one must try to understand Kṛṣṇa by serving a devotee. Looks like they're having nice prasadam too. Hey, another celebrated verse. Let's say it together, please. Na te vidusvarta gatim hi vishnum darashaya ye bahir artamanina adantayantan niyamanas te pishatantriyam urudam nibadha. Prabhupada liked Prahlad's teachings, and he liked teaching Prahlad's teachings. Celebrated verse. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, durashaya, the consciousness of enjoying material life, and who have therefore accepted as their leader a guru or similar blind man, attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Vishnu, not te vidu. Sva artagatim hi Vishnum. And then the blind leading the blind, andha yatandayar upaniyamanas, miss the right path and fall into the ditch. Materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, uru damni badha, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. Now this is the little boy teaching his father about the way of his life. And of course his father doesn't like it. But here's the blind leading the blind. One of many nice pictures of the blind leading the blind. And it doesn't end up well, because the one leading is blind, and the all following are blind. An actual guru is Shrotriya, one who has heard or receive perfect knowledge through parampara, the disciplic succession. Therefore, Prahlada Maharaj did not recognize a seminal spiritual master. Now, seminal spiritual master is Shukracharya. The very meaning of his name, Shukra Acharya, means seminal spiritual master, because he didn't have the qualification, but it was called Shukracharya because it was his family function, or by his father he became the Acharya, but not qualified, the Shukracharya. Such blind men lead many other blind followers without true knowledge of material conditions, but they are not accepted by devotees like Prahlada Maharaj. So who is accepted by Prahlada Maharaj? There's Prabhupada's lotus feet. Look at that. Shh. Let's chant together. Naishamatis tavad urokramangrim sparshat anarto bhagamo yadartaha mahiyasam pada rajobhishekam ishkinchananam nabranita yavat. Just want to look at Prabhupada's lotus feet for a while. Here's the translation. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely nishkinchananam, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities, urukramangrim. Though only by becoming Kṛṣṇa conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. So again, the question was, where'd you learn this? He's giving a very complete answer. You won't understand, and the only way you can understand is you get the mercy of one who is completely freed from material contamination, and then you can start to understand. And he hasn't directly answered the question, but he's answered the question. The question was, who'd you hear this from? Which enemy did you hear this from? So he's not saying by name, Narada Muni. He's saying you wouldn't understand anyways. This is your misfortune. And for you to understand something about this, dust from the lotus feet. Smear upon their bodies the dust of lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Mahiyasam padarajobhishekam, padaraja, dust from the lotus feet, and abhishek, take a bath. Smear upon your body the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. Becoming Kṛṣṇa conscious brings about anartha apagabamha, the disappearance of all anarthas, the miserable conditions we have unnecessarily accepted. Now, an image I like better is this lady that has a spray bottle and she's spraying the Hare Krishna mantra into the mirror. That's another image. But that's cleansing the mirror. That's sufficient. 1950s. Here's a scholar. Mundaka Upanishad says that let's say it together. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo na Medya na Bodha Shrutena. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, by presenting lectures in an erudite way, Pravachanena Labhya, or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. Now, those are revered in the world, but one cannot become self-realized by those methods. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Who knows the Sanskrit for that verse? Raise your hand if you know the Sanskrit for that verse. Huh?
I know the start.
Just forgot.
Say how it starts.
Yes, yes, but
Yeah.
No. Not. Yesterday,
Yeah,
Yata Devi, Tata Guru.
That was a good duet. So you say it alone, and then she can say it separately. Say it again. Yasya Devi. Slowly. Prakash. Everything becomes revealed. Prakash. It's a nice name. Prakash.
Devi Parabhakti Yatha Devi Tatha Guru Tasyete Katita Yatha Prakashante Mahatmana.
Prakashante, turn to such great souls. Everything becomes revealed. Especially Dinabandhu. There it is. Let's say it together. Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yatha Devi Tatha Guru Tasyaite Katita Yarta Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Then there's another verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, Upanishad. The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. So, Hiranyakasipu wants to have his son killed. And that's it for the teachings of Prahlada. But he's not finished, don't worry. He's going to be protected again and again and again, protected. So that's the end of our session this evening. Teachings of Prahlada, Part 3. And we'll continue tomorrow. And I don't know, maybe I'll do something with, it's very nice to remember Ramanujacharya. Very nice to remember him and glorify him and seek his mercy. So as we're doing the same with Prahlada. So this is chapter 5, and the whole series of discussing the life of Prahlada goes through chapter 10. In chapter 10, he's saying to Lord Nrsingadev, please don't ask me to take something from you, or I'm not a merchant. Our relationship is not that I serve you and I get something, and that's the impetus for me to serve you. There's nothing between us besides this one thing. You're the master, I'm the servant, nothing else. And he speaks about himself as if he's a conditioned soul, born in a demoniac family. I have demoniac tendencies because I'm born in a demoniac family, so please don't ask me for something material. I'll just become completely confused and enamored by material something. He speaks in that humble way, and then he turns around and says, you sent me to this material world to teach the way of pure devotional service. So he's teaching the way of pure devotional service every step. Every step. And so Prabhupada liked, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu liked hearing and describing. His mood is the Vaikuntha mood. We also glorify so much, the mood of the resident of Vrindavan and so forth and so on. But to get to the mood of the resident of Vrindavan, we have to have some clarity, please, about what pure devotional service is. Otherwise, we're not going to properly understand anything about Krishna's Braja Leela. What to speak of the gopis, what to speak of the higher subjects. So it's essential to hear again and again, to remember again and again, to receive that message of pure devotional service coming from such an exalted personality as Prahlada. So let's see if there's some discussion. teachings of Prahlada, chapter 5. Amara, I see your hand up.
So, like Maharaj, this point comes again and again, like a repeated pattern in my life. And this was covered here also today about satisfaction, being satisfied. So, my question is like we have earlier also heard from you that satisfaction is a quality that a devotee has. And I'm thinking that with the overwhelming things happening in the material world with regard to, development of technology or so many different things, and here I don't know so much, and it feels like what if, that kind of, things keep hovering around. And so my question is, how do we, I know it is a how to question again, and but how to cultivate that satisfaction? I know there are many blessings in my life, but still why the heart keeps going towards dissatisfaction, and how may I cultivate satisfaction with the given blessings already that I have?
Your question is how to cultivate satisfaction for the blessings that you've been given.
Yes, Maharaj.
Instead of hovering on
Yeah.
the chaos that's all around you.
Yeah, that which is not approachable, or that which is, I know that is too much for me to aspire for, like we are hearing materialistic aspirations.
So it depends. My response depends upon the channel that you want. You're asking the question from. Aspiring that the principle, in principle, aspiring for material amelioration, or gathering of resources that are on the material side and becoming better at this or more knowledgeable in that, and material aspiration, by its very fundamental nature, is not satisfying. Using the word that you used, it's not satisfying. It's never going to be satisfied. Right. By nature, it's dissatisfying. So the advice, the how-to advice is disconnect, gradually withdraw from that kind of aspiration of contentment and happiness and fulfillment, and redirect that tendency for achieving something, realizing something, attaining something, is the spiritual attainment. So what's that? And then it's not that you don't know the answer, but when you put in the answer in the blank space, then how to live that way. So it comes by practice. And practice of bhakti is natural because it's already there. Let's say, something that's not natural. Let's say information technology. That's already there. That's something that's people can acquire by, spending time in that arena of technology, learning, and then become accomplished at it and so on. But it's not of the soul. But bhakti is of the soul. So the problem, not just for you, the problem you're bringing up is the problem for everybody. That's why I'm spending time with it. It's just that the orientation is wrong, fundamentally wrong. And even though you're a devotee by nature, there's this other part of you, not just you, but there's all of us, that says, I have to also be not just a good devotee, I have to be good at this other stuff, because otherwise I'm not good enough. There's nothing wrong with, let's say, becoming accomplished at cooking, or becoming accomplished at singing, or becoming accomplished at reciting slokas, or becoming accomplished at something that you can offer in service to Kṛṣṇa. Nothing detrimental in that. But minus the bhakti, it's not satisfying, back to the word that you used. The satisfaction is acting from the place of who you really are. As I was spending some time today reading about Kanchi Purna, he was that kind of a person. He wasn't vastly learned, but he was respected by the Brahmanas because he understood better than they understood the scriptures, because of his natural devotion. And because of natural devotion, anyway, some persons have natural devotion, but it didn't just happen, fall out of the sky. It's cultivation and cultivation and cultivation. So, how many hours in this lifetime have you spent chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? And how many hours in this lifetime have you spent learning some kind of skill or another? And however good you are or not, it says something or other. More important on the satisfaction department is not just get more hours and do more things, become better at XYZ, but in the bhakti department, the time that you spend chanting the holy name, how much of that time, and I say this to myself regularly, how much time have I spent chanting the holy name, and how much bhakti is there as I'm chanting the holy name, and how much distraction or struggling with. So, the satisfaction comes within, and that's where your attention should go. And you don't have to ask the question because you know the answer. You have to spend time with what you know. And it's Brahminical work. I call it Brahminical work or devotional work. You have to work at it. It doesn't just come. Because it's natural, it will come. And that's what to do.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I had just one more question.
You have just one more.
Yes. if anybody else.
You can do one more.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, that...
Can you use the microphone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost the last slide, that Mundaka Upanishad. Yeah. So, Maharaj, can you kindly elaborate on this? The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses.
Without mercy, it doesn't happen. That's what it means. We make effort, but it's not sufficient.
So, from where I was coming from is like, in some other faiths, we hear that somebody suddenly got some realization.
Somebody who has what?
Suddenly got some realization, or they had out of body experience some point in time, and they then got like completely immersed in welfare activities or this or that. So how does that relate?
I'm not following your question at all.
In some other faiths, Maharaj, sometimes we hear that suddenly somebody got some realization, although they are not following the process, or they are not. So they say that we are chosen by the God or something of that kind.
You must have met somebody along that line somewhere, because I haven't met anybody like that.
Yeah, I'm not remembering the reference, Maharaj, but I will give, because I heard somewhere in Kṛṣṇa Leela Mataji's class one time. So, but I'm not remembering right now. So,
I'm not either.
yes. So, yes.
I'm not clear what you're asking. So maybe you could pause out, get clarity, and then we'll come back to you.
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room would like to discuss something? You have something.
So when you are showing that image with the people having merry time with the drinking and all that,
Yeah. Everyone was chuckling when they saw it.
so I was thinking like in terms of attracting the people to Krishna consciousness. So so these people who are feeling satisfied are not open, and is it the only people those who are distressed are more open?
No.
And also I have follow up. The next verse it is said, whoever has received the mercy. So try to engage them in the service. Even though they're comfortable, they can turn favorable to Krishna consciousness. That's a question I have.
What would say the second one again?
So whoever people can only turn to Krishna consciousness if they have served the devotees. So they have received the mercy of devotees. So is it by engaging them in some form of service? So those people who are having a satisfied time can get attracted to Krishna consciousness. I mean, these are three things.
I'm not clear what you're asking. The part that is clear is bhakti begins by receiving bhakti from one who has bhakti. That's how it begins. Or say it negatively, you can't begin bhakti without having contact with someone who's carrying bhakti. Say it positively. You can begin bhakti by having contact with someone spills some bhakti on you. Oh, so I got bhakti eyes. That's great. Now, the other part is not clear.
The other part is like how to attract the people.
How to attract people? By being attractive.
For distressed or because the comfortable people are not ready.
If they're already satisfied with
The partying, the drinking, and the throwing babies up in the air and things like that.
He's asking if they get some Agyat Sukriti, will that help them?
Is that what you're asking?
Like they
What-
get some service to the
So basically, I'm trying to find the candidates. Is it the distressed people I need to go, or
No, well, something, as you were asking your question, I was thinking of Kadamba Swami's, some of his parting teachings, and I'll just repeat, in his dilapidated physical condition, he was speaking about the festival that's awaiting us. Experiencing death and seeing someone going through it it's not joyful. But he was joyful, and he was wanting his followers, his disciples. He's very focused on those that he consider him as one that they look up to. And there's lots of people, as a result of how he handled himself in all of this, that are looking up to him and going back and hearing his recorded lectures. And anyway. For him, Krishna consciousness was a festival, and it wasn't attracting people who were down and out. It was attracting people who wanted a festival. And Krishna consciousness is meant to be like that. Now, there's some work, but work can also be a festival if the mood of what one is applying oneself to is knowingly, it's bringing one closer to the personality of Godhead. That's part of the festival. But the process itself is joyfully performed. The process itself. So, Prabhupada attracted people not because they were suffering. He attracted people by, happy people. By kirtan and dancing and prasadam and festivals and, wow. So it's we don't have to, the down and out people, there's our audience. It's persons who have their light on. By that I mean, whatever they have, they understand. In this past 10 days of travel going out in upstate New York, I met a lot of people that they're very clear that happiness is not within these worldly things. And they're not people that are not down and out people. They have those things. And it's not a place of shelter. It's not like they're suffering and depressed or something like that. They just, they can see it's not real happiness. You know, these are different groups of people, including some college students. There they are in college studying something to get something, and they're realizing that's not what the happiness is. So what's their motivation? So they want happiness, and they recognize what isn't. So they're looking for a method that's going to bring them closer to what real happiness is. That's an intelligent person. Doesn't have to be down and out. Someone else? I saw some hand over here. Yes. We're going over here, then we'll come back.
So it's said that with the combination of servitude and dedication and also Krishna's mercy, we can become successful. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this might be a little bit nuanced, but...
A little what?
Nuanced.
Nuance.
Of a question, but...
Uh-oh.
I promise I won't make it too complicated.
Okay.
But would you say this could be a random act of mercy, or is it an intentional act of mercy? Now, the second part to that question is, do we actually have any control in our actions, in our dedication to
Yes.
get more mercy?
Well, we can make ourselves eligible and be more inviting for more mercy, but we're not the controllers of
Right.
mercy.
And now, I know you've probably said this many times, but we have a new person in the crowd. I'm not going to name names, but what are some practical ways in which we can move toward the Lord, being somebody who's new and maybe a little bit unfamiliar with the path of bhakti?
What are some messages for such a new person? That's what you're asking?
Methods, maybe? Methods,
Method.
yeah.
Well, for me, the strongest is if this newer person coming into the association of persons that are more familiar with the bhakti path than they are, they see people that are happy. And they see people that conduct themselves with kindness towards one another. You know, character and quality and culture, and when that's seen, that's like, wow, that's nice. Or if they see the opposite, it's like, whoa. So those things, to me, those things are more compelling than teachings, or, you know, methods or tips or procedures or something. Person's character, achar is stronger than prachar. So the most compelling way to help new people understand the process, how to do it, and it's meaningful, and to feel encouraged to go another step, is to be a good example. You know, to be what the teachings say. Now, to go to some teachings, my thought, at the moment at least, my thought is going to the principle of sound vibration and the power of spiritual sound vibration. And it's powerful, and it's not like any other vibration. I'm sharing this with you this way. In Rochester, I met somebody who was in a crowd of people, and he said, there's something special about this mantra. because I feel something that I don't feel with any other sound vibration. Because I'm musical, I like so, but there's nothing like this. Could you describe a little bit like what's the science of this sound vibration? So that sound vibration, when heard, it's not like he already had some faith. It's just his experience is nourishing and nurturing his faith. So in many cases, not everyone, when there's kirtan that's joyful and someone experiences it, something happens. Like this is good. So that's also something very, very nice for a new person. And therefore, when new persons come into the association of devotees, it's nice to have Sankirtan. And it's good to have a combination of topics and chanting Sankirtan. You want to add something?
Well, I just wanted to say my question was directed for the ears of someone else, but then I learned something that I could do better and to be more of an example as well, and to treat people as if Krishna would treat them.
Yeah. You smile on the inside, and then it takes care of the smile on the outside. So back to her question about satisfaction. When you're feeling satisfaction and someone rubs shoulders with you and they feel, here's a person that's deep inside, they're very satisfied. Like, wow, there's something to this. Go ahead.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj. I wanted to share a takeaway from the Mundaka Upanishad, the last one.
It's still on the screen, by the way.
Oh, okay.
They can see. As you're speaking, they can see.
Right. So essentially, this is about the Lord is obtained only by one who he himself chooses. So I was thinking like this. My takeaway was to understand who such a person is that I can actually serve. So that was my takeaway. Instead of worrying about just mercy coming to me, I just wanted to take it as there's somebody who the Lord himself has chosen, and I wish to serve such a person.
Nice. And when that is the mood, and that does carry forward in your, from your heart to your life, then Krishna smiles. And when Krishna smiles, you feel something. Yeah.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, thank you for the very wonderful class. I just wanted some more clarification on the verse on Rajubhishekam, the dust of the feet of a devotee. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that there's, two substances that are especially potent, the dust and the remnants from a devotee. So they're specifically, it seems like they specifically are referring to these. It's not just symbolic, it's actually these substances. And Prahlada Maharaj here is saying that, a materialist needs this dust in order to get free. So my question is twofold. For the newcomer, what does this dust mean? And for us, what does this dust mean?
I read something recently, and unfortunately I didn't write it down. But there's something I read recently. If somebody knows where this is, please tell me so I can find it again. But Prabhupada was explaining this. It's sound. Dust from the feet of the devotee is the mercy that comes from the devotee through the form of sound that enters the ear. That's how one gets so it's not like we have to grab each other's feet or something. There's nothing, back to your question, doesn't mean an actual physical substance. Yes, it can mean an actual physical substance, But in lieu of the actual physical substance, it comes to one through the ear in the form of the sound, and the sound is the mood of loving service. And that's the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee through their messages. Anyone familiar with that passage? Because I came across, it's really nice. Probably Jiva Goswami something somewhere, Bhakti Sandarbha something. But it's so for a devotee, an inexperienced person, a newer person, what does it mean? It can be taken poetically rather than literally. For a newer person, it can mean, the feeling oneself before someone who's elevated, feeling their elevatedness. I mean, it's a little bit like what I was trying to share with Ramanujacharya meeting Kanchipurna for the first time. Just by seeing him, he felt something. And so the exchange was very feeling exchange. And Kanchipurna was very humble. And yet Ramanujacharya was culturally knew how to handle his humility by saying, you are who you are, and I want to be in your association at your feet, massaging your feet. Not, I'm a Brahmana and you're a Sudra. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. So the humility was exchanged, and the transcendental culture is part of that sense of, for a newer person, getting the mercy or the character and quality of humility and purity of that elevated soul. That's, then it's a poetic way of understanding the dust of the lotus feet of a saintly person. Or for us, it can literally mean the particles of dust. Here's a nice little example from Lord Chaitanya's life. In Lord Chaitanya's life, there's a village where his spiritual master Ishvara Puri was born and lived for many years, Kumarahata. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when visiting Kumarahata, he gathered a palmful of dust from Kumarahata, put it in a cloth, and kept the cloth and took a little bit of the dust on a daily basis. And because other persons saw that he did that, it's now a lake. They filled so many people taking dust. Yeah. I'll say it. Sometimes immature, imitative devotees would grab another devotee's foot and grab their foot, and Scripture says, and it won't let go of the devotee's foot, and it's just like a nuisance. It's imitative. So don't be imitative devotee. That's not getting mercy. It's making a disturbance. Bhakti Siddhanta, for example, he refused to let people take dust from his feet. You know the story, right? Some of you may not know the story. He gave a lecture in a hall where there was like a dispute between this party and that party, the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, and who is more exalted. And he honored the Brahmanas and said even more exalted, and it took 2 days. And it was so profound the way he presented it. There was a standing ovation from both parties for some period of time, and he wanted to leave. And they wanted to grab his feet, and he wouldn't let them grab his feet. The police saw a riot. This is Bengal, man, So they put a bucket down and forced him to put his foot in the bucket and sprinkled the water. so they wouldn't have a riot in the hall. But he, he was not inclined to have people take dust from his feet. I'm like that too, so beware. Someone else? Yes, Jagatananda. Here comes the microphone.
I came a little late today. Sri Ramanujacharya's spiritual masters, it seems he had different at time to time. Could you
He had
share?
what? He had
different spiritual masters from time to time, or like that? Can you explain?
Well, that's a whole topic.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. Maybe
Thank you.
tomorrow.
All right.
Because yes and no. How's that? The one who he was receiving from did not give him mantra. He did not have any direct dialogue, anything shiksha or diksha. But his one was Yamunacharya. And then other persons had other functions, and other functions are just fine. Other functions are just fine. But the principal one was one. Paramartha Acharya, that was Yamunacharya. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. I have two questions. One question is related to the
Can you speak a little louder? He's going to turn the microphone up in case you don't.
yeah. Maharaj, I have two questions.
I heard that part.
First question is related to the chewing of the chewed. We all start with a very positive frame of mind when we start in our careers and when we are working, and with all the teachings that we have a very positive attitude towards whatever we are doing. We say that, we believe that we are doing it for Krishna. I want to know when this journey becomes chewing the chewed. What is the line that we can draw in sand to say
You're
that?
talking career now?
Yeah.
When is chewing the chewed become
When does
present
it-
in the career?
Yeah.
Well, when Krishna moved from the center, that's when it becomes chewing the chewed. It didn't have to, but generally it does. Because generally we become complacent and, the enthusiasm is using Bhaktivinoda's language, enthusiasm becomes cold. The starting point is utsahan. And when that utsahan becomes cold, then it becomes chewing the chewed. In anything that you're doing. No, not just career, anything. Anything. Japa, study, building a temple. Anything. Anything. So how do you keep it fresh and filled with enthusiasm? I'm anticipating that question. So, it's the conscious awareness of who we are and what our purpose in life is. So it can be, with good intention, but not matured in the beginning. And that's the enthusiasm that fizzles. So then what to do? We have to revisit what the purpose. What's the essence of bhakti? Who am I? What's important to me? Those fundamental questions have to be given life or act with vitality in our life. And then it can powerful. Doesn't fizzle. Doesn't become chewing the chewed.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much. The second question is related to the last verse.
This one?
Yes.
Same one.
Yeah. we often come across this expression that, you know, if we take one step towards Krishna, then he takes 100. In that context, this seems a little discouraging.
No. That's the 100.
Let me put it differently, Maharaj. In what context should I understand this verse where it says that, you know, one obtains only when Krishna chooses him?
And the answer is that's the 100. You choose Krishna, he'll choose you. Oh. If you ignore Krishna, he's not going to interfere. He may tap you on the shoulder or kick you in the shins or something, but hey, you know, but that's also mercy. But you know, he reveals himself to those who want him. That's the context. I'm gonna end. We've been going for a while. Time to end. Srila Prabhupada ki, Prahlada Maharaj ki, Gaur Premanandi.